I was talking to a Quranist.
Okay.
There is a huge Quranist group here in Arizona. It's in Tucson, actually. Tucson is a city south of Phoenix. I'm actually in Phoenix. So every time I go there, it's like I'm not trying to have any problems with anybody, but I feel like every time I go there, it's like they notice like different things about me, like I'm praying Sunnah prayer. Okay, I get it. It's not in the Quran. Okay, and then it comes up, and I always make this personal intention that I'm a nobody, and I don't want to argue with anybody. That's why I have no problem with Christians, Jews, atheists. Yeah, look, they all have free will. I have free will, subhanallah. You know, it's okay. But for some reason, I feel like I'm always getting into these discussions with the Quranists, and I'm not actually completely against them. I actually think that there's a lot of truth in it. For example, I think the Prophet was the first Quranist. I actually think he was the first Quranist because he wasn't following any other sunnah. You know, well, I'm just saying as a so I've actually come up with my own idea, and I know it needs to be cleaned up a little bit, but my idea is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent the Quran, and if somebody follows the Quran, there's a possibility that they misinterpret it. It's possible. It's very possible.
It's very, very possible, because the Quran is in language, and we all understand language differently.
Yeah. So if I was to look at the Quran only, yes, there's no Sunnah prayer, there's no Nafil prayer, but I feel like on the Day of Judgment, if that's all I had, I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would say, well, the doors of heaven are very wide if all you had is the Quran. But if you're going to use the narrow hallways of these different groups, you know, the Salafis and the Sunnis and the Shias, then you've confined yourself, and that's okay too, because that's a reading, meaning it's one way of reading the Quran in that depth. But I feel like one of the mercies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that everybody does not have to be at that level, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's graciousness is so great that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like, you know what? Yeah, I know I sent the messenger, and the messenger went to such a degree. And then there's all these other people that have actually created these other divisions, but not so different. But I'm only going to hold you to the Quran.
So you see, what I would say is, because this, you see, this
so it's all
question,
okay is what I'm saying. It's all okay is what I'm saying. Okay.
No, I get it. No, absolutely. And you see, what I would say to this is that, right, because there's many layers to that question. So the first layer that you're asking about from God's perspective, you see now, and the akhirah, the eschatological, we're looking at who has salvation in the afterlife. And you see, these things really, I always find it, this is me personally, I always find it very arrogant to assume on these matters about who will go where in the afterlife, and who will, you know, I'm this measly human who can't, you know, figure out stuff in this human life, and here I am trying to talk on matters about God's decree. It's not really, doesn't befit me as a human. This is me personally. I find it almost as very, you know, stupendously arrogant to attempt that. So I wouldn't speak on things like that. You see, Allah's mercy encompasses all his creation. It encompasses all, and only Allah knows what he will do and how he treats. We just deal with ourselves in this world. That's what I would say. So nobody can be going around telling you're going to hell, that guy's definitely going to hell, this woman's definitely going to hell, that bunch of people are going to. We worry about ourselves. We concern ourselves with the path. We serve people. That's what we do. We develop ourselves. That's our journey. The other issue is about Quranists. Now, I'm not exactly sure, because people use this term and they use it in different ways. So I'm not exactly sure, because they're not a monolith, one people who are the Quranists, for example. They are different representations. It's like saying Sunni. So Sunni includes it'll include the Sufis, it'll include the Salafis as well, will put themselves in Sunnis, it'll include Brelvis, Deobandis, Jamaat-e-Islami, it'll include all these groups will still call themselves Sunni. Now, in somewhat of a reflection, you'll get people that will call themselves Quranist, or people call them Quranist, but some won't claim that. They will say, no, of course we accept the Sunnah of the Prophet, but it's just we have doubt on, for example, certain things that go against reason. Or some might say we have doubt that the Hadith has reached us with accuracy. Had it reached us with certainty, we would have accepted it. So this is now an epistemological issue. Okay, it's that they're doubting the veracity of what's reached us, the information. They're not denying the loyalty to the Prophet. So there's a big difference conceptually. I personally, you see, I would say that the Islam, the practice of Islam has not reached us through Hadith. It's reached us through the living tradition. Now, this is where people misunderstand this. They think that Islam reached us through Hadith. It didn't. They think that Salah, how to pray Salah, reached us because it's said in Abu Dawood or in Tirmidhi. No, that's not true. Abu Dawood comes over 200 years, about 200 years after the Prophet, as does Imam Bukhari. For 200 years were people not praying. You see, Islam was taught from parent to child and in community. And this is how it got transmitted, by the living tradition. And so this is how we learn things like Salah. This is how we learn things like Saum, the main features of Islam. And people disagreed. I get that. Wherever there was interpretation, people disagreed. But this is how it was taught. Now, I do advise and advocate to embrace the tradition of Islam. And I feel that this is the inherited tradition, is not in that sense about these things corrupt. It's not like the 5 prayers, for example, is not a corruption. It's actually the living tradition. But let's say if somebody didn't accept that. If somebody said to me, look, Mufti, I don't accept any of this because I can't trust it. And I feel, this kind of Quranist, as I'm assuming the archetypal kind of Quranist now, or the stereotypical, Quranist. You see, fine. Okay, if they want my view, I will give it. But arguing doesn't get us anywhere, because to be honest, nobody has ever said in an argument, oh, wow, you know what? You beat me so bad in that argument, I'm going to believe you. That's never happened in human history. All that happens is you can humiliate someone in an argument, and what happens, they just hate you even more. Okay, you might win it. Like I might debate someone and I might be able to mesmerize them because of certain things and run rings around them and humiliate them. Now, I might win that. So people might say, wow, Mufti, did a number on this guy, blah, blah, blah. And it serves my ego. It really massages that. But this person is just walked away hating my guts and hates everything that I stand for and that argument even more. So this is why when Imam Malik was asked, shall we debate over the Sunnah? Hal yujadal an Sunnah? He said, la. He said, yukhbar anha idha su'il. He said, if they ask you, you just answer, but don't argue over it. Don't cause it to become a something that spreads this kind of animosity. So that's for the arguing angle. So I would say that, it's not, if somebody wants a genuine conversation, that's fine. And you could give your side, they could give their side, you could think about it, they could think about it. But if it's a debate, I don't think these really yield results. And I get it. Look, Quranists, in that stereotypical sense, I get it as well. They too, a lot of people, you see, one of the problems is we don't look, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he looked at people through a lens of compassion. It doesn't matter whether they were kuffar, mushrikeen, they were Majusi, Nasrani, Yahudi. He understood that this is a human who's trying to come at it with some, in his version of integrity. That they brought the dead body of the Jewish woman who's going, oh, the Prophet stood up out of respect. And they were like, what's the Prophet doing standing up? They said, Ya Rasulullah, inna Yahudiya, it's a Jewish. The Prophet looked at him and said, inna nafs. It's a soul. Where's your human compassion? So the point is that, you see, you have to understand that even people who disagree with you, Salafi, be they Wahhabi, or be they Shia, be they whatever group, Brelvi, Deobandi, Jamaat Islam, whatever you want to see, Quranist, Qurani, everybody in their own way is trying to come from a position of love for the deen. And you have to understand the angle, because once you see it from compassion, you realize, okay, I see where you're coming, even if you feel they've missed the mark. But you see, they're not coming at it from this great propaganda to trick everyone. And whether they be Salafi, Shia, Qurani, anything, they are still coming at it from a place of love. Now, the Quranist is coming at it from this angle that, look, because some hadith are definitely made up, which some definitely are, everybody knows that. We've got books of fabricated hadith. So therefore, because there is doubt, so the safe side is that we can't attribute any of this to the Prophet, because there's too much doubt in all of this. And this has been used as a power of manipulation and whatever, etc., etc., etc. And let's throw this all out. And with it, they've thrown out all of fiqh, most of fiqh, because they assume fiqh was also part of hadith or built on hadith, as it is today because of the Salafi movement. So you see, but in the past, it was never like this. Is why in the past, where were the Quranists in the past? Because if you predate the Salafiyah, fiqh was never built from hadith. It was built from the living tradition. So you never had this argument. So it's only with the Salafis, they started to build fiqh from hadith. Then people started to problematize the hadith and therefore say, let's throw everything out the window. So the argument isn't, to me, it isn't as convincing as they think it is. You see, this is, to me, it isn't as convincing, because to me, there are many examples that I can show from fiqh that it would be impossible for sects that are so averse and adverse to each other, like Shia, Sunni, Khawarij, to all agree on certain factors of fiqh. That would be impossible. They hated each other. Unless this was the living tradition, you triangulate it and you arrive at, I get it now. So, but I do understand that, look, these people too are trying to come from a position of love. So let's not, you see, it shouldn't be about trying to bash them. Let's get them in a corner and I want to bash them and humiliate them, because that's going to make them just hate this even more. So yeah, that's what I'd like to say. I think it's important.